Okay, so this is our introduction to Insignia. Most of you will have already looked at this project in terms of the documentation. What this does is it gives us a bit more perspective on exactly where it is in Manchester and a little bit more about Manchester itself and obviously the transport links that we have with this particular development. As most of you are familiar, Manchester has grown significantly over the years. Many people aren't familiar with the reasons for that. Naturally, there's the push for the Northern Powerhouse that's been going on, but Manchester also has the unique part of it. It's the only city in the UK where all of the council tax is kept by the local government and reinvested back into the city, which has seen significant amount of infrastructure. And there's not a need to consult Westminster or what have you with the infrastructure or the spending of their own council tax. Within this area here, within the Mancunian Way, is the sort of expensive residential areas, of which initially the city centre was sort of this area around here. Following some really good investment by the council and with support from the EU, we saw a lot of investment in the likes of Spinningfields, which is a major banking area. Property prices are now astronomical for the city, and also Castlefield, which was another really good regeneration area. In addition to this, we saw the Northern Quarter, which was traditionally called Ancoats. This area was the textile area and somewhere that became really quite trendy and relatively cheap to buy. The regeneration in that area again has put property prices very high, and I'm sure anybody that's been looking at property in Manchester can see that. Additionally, now Ancoats has seen the same regeneration, again following on from the Northern Quarter's sort of regeneration. Ancoats has now become the next place, and New Islington, we're also seeing a lot of development in and around New Islington, which was probably as far up as we'll be able to see development on this side of the city, due to much of this area here being sort of council or ex-council houses, which would have to be levelled to be able to continue extending this area. To the south of the city, we've got the extension of Castlefield in here, which has seen now, this is already very well established. The area itself has again seen an awful lot of growth and has followed on from the real sort of major developments in and around Salford Quays, which has been developed, the master developer, the person behind or the company behind that whole development area here within Salford Quays is Peel Holdings Group, which many of our clients will recognise from the project they're doing over in Liverpool on Liverpool Waters, which I'm sure most people have looked at, as we have a number of key developments in that area. Now, the project itself here is Insignia. It's within an area itself which is seeing the next round of Manchester regeneration. This area has traditionally been mainly offices, retail, some restaurants, and key places such as the Old Trafford football ground, which is Manchester United's home ground, and the Old Trafford Cricket Club. Significantly in the area, the council are creating this into a new residential zone, and part of the reason behind it is one, the real need for residential in Manchester itself, and the crowding of residential within the Mancunian Way, but also in terms of with the growth that's going on in and around this area. This area itself is 8 minutes on the tram, 8-10 minutes on the tram to Manchester city centre. The trams are constant, as you can see here. The tram links are here, and you can go either south out to the south down to the likes of Altrincham and towns outside of the city, and you can come a few minutes down the line into sort of core city centre where tier 1 developments are, £250,000 for a one bed, as you'll recognise from our Burlington Square development and our Blackfriars development within that area. It also goes up to Salford Quays. This is really a walk away, but you're welcome to get the tram if you so wish. and it's also connected with several bus routes and major road routes. The development is in what many call sort of exterior media city or outer media city. I know a number of the businesses that are based here have that on their footers and their business cards. Technically, it's Trafford, and in the same way that Media City is technically Salford. But what we're seeing here is this whole development area. A significant part of it is right here, the ex-Kellogg's factory. This is seeing a huge amount of. This is becoming part of Lancaster University campus, and you'll probably have seen it within the news, within several newspapers, certainly within Manchester itself, but also national papers, because this is being, it's not only Microsoft are involved in this, but also the class of '92, which are significant footballers from Manchester United, who have been part of that is Gary Neville and Phil Neville, who since retiring from football have put an awful lot into the city of Manchester in terms of development. But also what they're doing is they're backing projects such as this, which are, as well as hotels and what have you. But this project itself is going to be a university which will support people who are looking to do work in and around elite sports, people who want to be managers, lawyers, work in advertising in and around elite sport, which has seen significant growth again in the city of Manchester. A lot of that's to do with the two teams, Manchester United, Manchester City, and Manchester City putting an awful lot of development in themselves. But this whole campus was going to bring on about 8,000 students from the UK and internationally. Also, infrastructure around those students, the likes of lecturers and what have you. Our site itself is here, and it's actually in this area here. This unit here is being developed by CERT, who are the developers. Most people who are or investors in and around Manchester will recognise CERT. They're a large development company. They've been developing in the city since 2006. Their last two developments, we saw growth of 32% and 25% between exchange and completion of the project. So that's the sort of growth that they're delivering to their investors. Again, this investment is a 20% in, and this will be ready 3 months after the university is established. What that'll do is it'll give us not only university students who will be looking for accommodation, those 8,000 students will need somewhere to live, but really the main focus on this area is the connections with Manchester, 8 minutes to get to work or certainly into the city centre, but also everything around here are major offices such as here, next to the cricket club. These are all office spaces here. Significant amount of employment in the area which needs residential. Our focus on our tenants here will be young professionals or professionals who work in the city but are looking to either save some money by having a slightly cheaper rent than what the rent's becoming within Manchester, in a similar fashion to people sort of edging out of London as the city developed and grew. The same is happening with Manchester. Significantly, it has 80 FTSE 100 companies, and equally, the BBC is based just across the river in Media City. In addition to this, what we're also seeing is with this development itself, it's unique in that it has 1 and 2 beds, and very similar to a project that many of our investors will remember that was incredibly successful that we had on the outskirts of Birmingham. The 2 beds in this development are selling as fast as the 1 beds. This is unique, and especially this development is unique in the sense that the 2 beds are exactly the same size ensuite 2 beds, which means that for 2 young professionals sharing, maybe 2 foreign students sharing, we'll see a significant amount of rent because the rooms are exactly the same size. We will not have the argument over who's having the master room and who's having the box room. The two beds themselves look this way, so they look over the campus and the greenery here, and the one beds look over towards Old Trafford this way. Connection, as I mentioned before, is significant with both train stations at Old Trafford, bus stations all along here, and also the tram routes. Both tram lines are in around 5 minutes walk, maybe slightly less if you're a faster walker, maybe slightly more if you're a slower walker. Now, as an investment opportunity, this has been one of our fastest selling off plan. This development is going to break ground in November or December. I'm sure you already have the materials on CERT, the property developer behind this project. I would suggest also looking at their website and asking your associate to give you a little bit more information about them, because they're a very, very strong developer. With regards to this project itself, as you will have seen in the brochure, some of the key points to look at, obviously the finish of the development. These are floor-to-ceiling windows, large windows which are going to bring in a huge amount of light and are in line with what people are expecting now from their rental property, and also what investors expect from their investment. Internally, real wood floors, and the finish of all of the kitchen, all the materials is second to none. Equally, the bathroom is exactly the same. One major draw for your tenants is going to be this rooftop, seating area, and especially the gym space. Often with these sorts of developments where they have these sorts of amenities, and the first thing that we asked when this development came available and we were aware of this being on the roof, this gym, is that sometimes that can have a detrimental effect on the service charge. And if the service charge is too high, we find that our profits as investors are diminished and it doesn't make sense to invest. With this particular property, we're always looking at any property, £2 and below is our ideal sort of price point for price per square foot on service charge. Anything significantly above that, we have to question why we're paying it and whether it's going to affect our income and whether our rent can be significantly higher to reflect that. This particular development is unique in that the price per square foot is only £1.65. So when we were discussing this development initially, that was a really strong point for us as well. Ground rent is sensible as well, and as is the rental income. As you'll notice in the documentation, there's a 6% rental yield, which is guaranteed for the first year, which helps all of the investors get comfortable. You're comfortable with the first year worth of rent. Also allows that first year for us to settle with the types of tenants that are going to be in there, the young professionals, even the students or the lecturers in the second year. With growth expected, capital growth in the immediate between construction and completion, you're looking at around 20%. On a £200,000 property, naturally we're going to see £40,000 by completion. And if we're sensible, likely about 4% capital growth per annum, up to about 6.5%, which we're seeing this year in Manchester. Rental yields we are expecting to naturally grow over time. Year one is already 6% gross, and this will continue to grow as the area is developed further and naturally as people are being priced out of the city centre, and equally the sheer volume of additional people moving to Manchester. It was only a few years, or only over the last few years, that Manchester had the highest growth of people moving out of London, and part of that comes with the major companies that are coming out. Manchester will have the HS2 when that eventually finishes, so that again will give major links into the city, into London and obviously north. But as a place to invest, Manchester is naturally one of, if not the best place or the safest place for investors to put their money. Highly established city. What we have here is an area outside of a highly established city, which has got established areas all around it, and yet we're able to buy in at a price point which is significantly lower than both the city centre, but also a price point that's equivalent of cities around the UK which are less advanced or less established than Manchester itself. If you have any further questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to ask. Naturally, this project is fully mortgageable. That has been checked with mortgage providers in the UAE, Hong Kong and the UK, which are all of our major markets. The legals behind it, all of the legal documents along with this to protect you, the investor, have all been checked by an independent solicitors, which we can share with you. The area itself, we've used various different external sources as well as our own internal research. We've used external sources to be able to get a good picture to understand that the level and the quality of investment here all have given us the confidence to invest in this area. As our clients know, we only pick out the developments which fit our 8-point criteria, which if you haven't looked at already, please do have a look over. The 8 points are critical to any investment, and even if you do not invest with us, we would strongly suggest you use those 8 points when checking out any development whatsoever. So this one ticks all of the boxes. We're going to see some growth here. We're going to see a really good return here, and we're expecting to sell this one out in the next couple of weeks.